podcast, but for the most part, I just want to hear like how people got to where they got and like the hardest part of their journey, and then what were the biggest lessons that they learned along the way. So was there anything that like really stuck out once you started going along your journey and becoming a online coach? What was the biggest lesson you learned and that you still implement today to keep growing?
Man, I think there's a couple things that come to mind right away. I mean, the first most practical piece of advice for anybody that can apply across the board. Actually, both of these can. Number one is it takes way longer than you're going to think. So however long you think it's going to take to build this business or build this vision, times it by two at least. Because, I've been so in college, I started writing articles for the community college newspaper on fitness, and I started a blog that nobody read, but I was like, I'm just going to start writing because the only way to do it is just to do it, right? To get better at it. But I always loved writing. I always wanted to have a blog, and I looked up to some people, specifically like Nate Green and Jay Ferrugia, Christian Thibodeau, which so funny, Christian Thibodeau and Dr. John Russin, I'm on like I can hit him up whenever now, which is just crazy for me to think of. Christian's coming on the podcast soon. John's already been on there. I write articles for his site all the time now. But all four of those guys were people, they're all four people I've met multiple times now and hung around. But they were all four people that were like famous to me. They were like celebrities because they had this like fitness brand online. They were reaching millions of people. They kind of created this lifestyle that I wanted to live. They were in shape. They were happy. They had their own site. They made money online. And at the time I had no idea how they did it. I was like, I don't know, because there wasn't really online coaching. So I was like, do they write ebooks? Do they sell books? Do they get paid by advertisements? I was like, I have no idea, but all I know is I have to start writing or else none of that is going to be possible. So I just started writing, and long story short, I've been writing articles. There's probably obviously a couple weeks that I've skipped throughout the process, but I've been writing articles every week for the last 7 years. It wasn't until my fiance got pregnant that I slowed down on how many articles I was writing, but literally every week for almost 7 years, writing blogs and posting on Instagram every single fucking day, Facebook every single day, adding people into free groups and posting content there, shooting YouTube videos, now doing 2 podcasts a week. Like, that's a long time of free content. Free, like giving people free information because I knew it would pay off. And it has, obviously, but I think people just need to realize is it's going to take a long time. And my mentor told me, he's like, dude, the best thing you can do is just give away as much free, valuable information as you possibly can. Try to change as many lives as you can through that. And then make your money and plan on only making your money from training people in person and getting experience. So I didn't make a ton of money for years, but I got experience, and I just put everything I could into the content, and eventually it paid off. So like one big valuable lesson was just, it takes a long time. And I've always been kind of impatient, to be honest with you. And I think I always say it's a gift and a curse because I've always been impatient, which isn't a good thing. But at the same time, it pushed my hustle because I was like, I need to make this shit happen. So I've always had this sense of urgency. And it allowed me to keep going and keep going and keep going. But I think people just need to realize it takes a long time. And then the other thing is, and this is going to kind of go into a separate story that's actually, now that I realize it, and I've told my story on multiple podcasts. I've told my story on my own podcast. I've never, ever told this story, which is really fucking surprising, actually. Life is just really, really short and really, really precious. So when I was 20 years old, I wasn't old enough to get into bars yet. I was 2 years into my fitness career, probably 3 years into my fitness career. I was almost 21. And I was working I mentored with a guy. I finished college, and I was working at the top facility in Washington State. And to this day, I still stand by that. It's the top facility, Vigor Ground Fitness and Performance in Renton, Washington, just outside of Seattle. And had everything going really smoothly, right? And I had broken up with a girlfriend, and I was like, my boy was convincing me to go out, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go out and party. And it's like, it was New Year's Eve, and I was just kind of ready to get loose again because I hadn't, like I said, I changed my lifestyle. I kind of got away from all that stuff, but I was gonna go have fun. So we go to this party, and I didn't really know that many people there, but it was super fun. And there was this girl that got punched in the face outside by a guy. And so everybody kind of lost their shit because that's just something, I don't care.
Unacceptable.
Yeah, you don't do that. Yeah, you don't do that shit. And so everybody's trying to make their way outside. And I happen to be like walking the crowd, and I'm in front of people. And I don't think I was doing anything particular. I don't remember anything. But as I was walking out the front door, a guy grabbed a half-gallon bottle of liquor and smashed me in the face with it. So he split open my eye, broke a glass half-gallon over my head. I knocked unconscious, and I got jumped by like 3 or 4 guys, punching me in the face, kicking me in the face, knocking the back of my head into these steps. And I only had one friend there, really. So he ran through and pushed the guys off. He got hit a bunch of times. Long story short, I woke up in the bathroom and I got blood everywhere. And I'm looking up and I see this cop standing over me. I'll never forget. This is all I remember from the whole night because I obviously was knocked out unconscious. I don't remember anything. But she was standing over me and she had come to the party hours ago and told us to turn the music down. And I remember the house owner saying they would. And then we obviously went back to partying. And she literally looked at me and just said, I told you guys should have turned it down, and left me in the bathroom. So somebody drove me to the hospital that I didn't know, dropped me and my friend off at the hospital. And then like my parents came and people came. My car was at this party still or something. And it was just like this moment of like, holy shit, man, that could have been it, right? Because I had to, go to court and I had the doctors tell me I could have died because, I mean, that's a lethal weapon. The dude ended up going to jail for year plus, paying a bunch of money. And somebody else ratted him out actually too that I didn't even know because I didn't know him. I didn't know the witness. I didn't know anybody. So I just felt like, man, I just got hit. I almost died. That could have been it. I couldn't go back to work. I couldn't train for weeks. I wasn't making money because I had to stay away from gym. I couldn't yell. They broke my jaw. So if I tried to yell, my jaw would click out of place. So I'm like in this place where I'm just like, dude, anything could happen. I was walking out of a fucking door and got blindsided and then jumped. Anything could happen. And I could have died. And they told me that. And the guy could have got away. Luckily, there was a witness that ratted him out that knew him. But I mean, in any other situation, that could have just been done. So I think after that, I mean, first of all, I was paranoid as hell, scared as hell. I was very had a trust issue for a while, and it was just kind of like a light check, man. I definitely didn't go out for a while, but it just kind of made me realize that like going back to like being on autopilot, right? Like it gave me more reason to not be on autopilot and to just be like we should be really pushing to have something more than just surviving. Like we should be really striving for like to thrive, So major lesson because it paused everything for a while and it just made me. It was the first like time I ever like really looked at how precious life was.
I had a similar experience. I had like 5 years ago now. I had a DVT blood clot in my iliac vein in my leg, and it's pretty fatal. Usually you could lose your leg or you can get something that goes in your brain and all this stuff. And I went to Stanford and biggest doctors, they can never tell me what the hell happened, why it happened. I was the most fit I've ever been in my life, go to the gym 5 days a week, just super fit. And this just happened sporadically. And it was just like, it's interesting because you said it didn't happen immediately when you got hit in the head and you realized how precious life was. It takes some time to settle in. And I was in that same zone for the last 5 years. Like, man, I haven't been getting all of life yet. It's not there yet. I know I could get more out of it. And I think that's a huge thing is life's so precious and you don't have any time to waste because you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But
100%.
So kind of jumping all around here. So you have a fresh baby girl, Blakely.
Yep.
Is it Blakely your name?
Yep. Blakely May.
So back to the father talk, seeing what you guys went through when you were a kid, what does that motivate you to do for your daughter and your family that you don't think you would have unless you experienced what you did when you were younger?
It's crazy because it's almost like it's hard to even explain, man. It's balance for sure is what it teaches me that I need, but it's crazy because once I found out that we were having a baby, my business doubled literally because I went into ultra grind. I was like, you know what? Like I want her to be able to stay home, take care of the baby, be comfortable. We were living in an apartment because we were only dating for a year and it was kind of like, hey, we had plans to build a house eventually. And it was like, let's just chill. Let's get an apartment in the town we love, like we grew up in and just chill. And then once that happened, we were like, okay, let's find a home. I want to buy a house. You have a little car. I want to buy you an SUV. I want you to be comfortable. I want her to have everything she needs. And I just fucking grinded, man. And it worked, right? But then you get to this point where it's like, okay, I've created all this because of them. And this is exactly what my dad went through, right? He overworked because of us, and he created a massive amount of success, a ton of opportunities and things that like a lot of kids don't get to experience because of it, that I took for granted because all I really cared about was the relationship. So for me, it's like this, like I go so hard and then I have to stop and take a step back and be like, my daughter does not know that sleeping in the nicest crib or fucking that her mom has a nice SUV or anything like that. She just wants me around. She needs to feel my energy. So for me, it's like I have to constantly remind myself to take a step back. And that's where like my morning rituals come in, man. I'm always like writing affirmations and positive feedback and stuff like that about myself, and just reminding myself like, slow down, take a step back. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to be going 100% all the time. It's more about impact than it's about money and things like that, just so I can just remind myself that we're all good. But I think the biggest lesson I've learned since it, man, is like, I mean, one, it's a completely different type of motivation, because it's a type of love and care that you can't really explain. And it's funny because like when I say it, it reminds me of like when I didn't know I was having a child, and I would hear dads talk about like, oh, you have no idea and you don't understand. And I'm like, all right, dude, like
whatever, man.
Yeah. And now I'm like, oh my God, they're so right. It's just so crazy. And so like, I think just it's a burning love. It's a burning care. It's such a big motivator. But you really have to take a step back and remind yourself that balance is so key for multiple reasons. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a big believer that if you don't take care of your mind, your spirit, your body, and you burn out because you're working so hard, like you can only go hard for so long, right? So if you just keep grinding, you're going to burn out, and then it's all going to crumble down. But then also too, like the people around you will resent you, right? Like my fiance doesn't care about money. She cares about me. So I have to remind myself about the balance and not to get too sucked into work, man, because at the end of the day, I truly love what I do, and I help a lot of people, and it's so powerful to be able to do that. So I can get sucked into it.
Yeah. I mean, I hear Joe talk about it all the time when he's like, you never know how much you can love something until you have a kid. And I'm like, I do the same thing. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Yeah. I'm not there yet, but,
I know exactly what episode you're talking about. Cause he was talking about that right as we were having the baby, I think. And I remember listening to him, and he was talking about, like he looks at other people that he would usually get pissed at, and he'd be like, oh, you were just a baby at one point. And like, it completely changes the way he gets mad at people, which I thought was hilarious. Yeah.
Airplane. He's like, oh, that poor baby.
Yeah. And then you think about it, it's like, holy shit, that's true. And it's funny too, like when, we found out in June of last year, and then, in late August, I think it was, he came to Seattle, and I went to his live show, and he did a whole bit on like his experience of his pregnant wife. And it was the funniest thing to me at the time. Like, oh my God, it was hilarious.
I just saw him in Santa Barbara when he rolled through California here, and it was so funny just to see him, because I listen to him on the podcast, so I feel like I can like almost jump in a conversation with him because I listen to him talk so much, and like to see him on stage like talking about stuff that they talk about on the podcast is just the whole. Even when I jumped on with Adam, it's just the whole podcast thing's so weird, and we kind of talked about how the podcast, you can't put like a persona up. Like you talk so much, you got to be like 100% authentic. And it's just interesting because I listen to you, and it's the same thing. Like I feel like I could jump right in and talk about stuff that's going on in your life and just slide it right in naturally, like if we are friends for years.
Yeah.
But
it's great, man.
Yeah. So I know you're big on the morning ritual thing, and I have a morning ritual that's probably not optimal. I wake up super early for work, and I've been trying to chug some water because I heard Aubrey talk about the drink water right when you wake up. So I've been trying to put this stuff in. What do you think some of the biggest first things to do when you wake up are?
So I would, there's 5 things that come to mind right away. First and foremost is coffee. Like I think that you need something to wake you up, and it starts your nervous system, it starts your brain, it starts your digestive tract. I'm huge on coffee. I'm a coffee snob, so I get like Seattle local organic coffee with like collagen and stevia and all this shit that I put in it. But I'm a big guy on coffee because you can kind of create a